Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. How are you doing today? Welcome to the Path of Peace. Today's story takes us back to the earliest days of Islam, a time when faith was tested in the harshest of ways. It is the story of a man who began life as a slave but rose to one of the greatest honors in the history of Islam. His name was Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, the man whose voice became the first to call believers to prayer. His journey from the chains of slavery to the heights of spiritual dignity is one of the most powerful reminders of how faith can free the soul even when the body is bound. The story of Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, the voice of faith. Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, was born in Mecca. His mother Hamama was from Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, and his father was an Arab slave. From birth, Bilal lived a life of hardship. He served under the cruel and wealthy Umayyah ibn Khalaf, one of the fiercest enemies of Islam. In a society that looked down upon slaves and black people, Bilal was seen as the lowest of the low. But Allah, the most just, was about to raise him to a level of honor that kings and nobles could only dream of. When the message of Islam began to spread secretly in Mecca, Bilal heard the words of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and his companions. He heard the message of La ilaha illallah Allah, there is no God but Allah, and it touched his heart deeply. For a man who had been treated as property all his life, this message was revolutionary. It declared that every human being was equal before Allah, that no man had superiority over another except through piety and righteousness. Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, embraced Islam quietly without anyone knowing. But soon his faith was discovered, and his master Umayyah was furious. He decided to crush Bilal's belief through torture and humiliation. They dragged Bilal into the scorching desert of Makkah. They stripped him to the waist, made him lie on the burning sand, and placed heavy stones on his chest so he could not move. The only thing he had to do to end the torture was to deny Allah and declare belief in the idols of Quraysh. But Bilal's lips refused to utter falsehood. The only words that came out of his mouth were Ahad. Ahad, one, affirming the oneness of Allah. Under the blazing sun, beaten and weak, he repeated again and again. His body was in pain, but his heart was filled with peace. The more they tortured him, the stronger his faith became. His strength astonished the people of Makkah. They could not understand how a slave, who had no wealth or power, could stand firm against the might of the Quraysh. But Bilal's power came not from this world, it came from faith in Allah. Freedom and honor. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, heard about Bilal's suffering, he was deeply moved. He knew Bilal's heart was pure, his faith unshakable. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet's closest companion, went to Umayyah and offered to buy Bilal's freedom. Umayyah at first refused, mocking Abu Bakr and the Muslims, but eventually he agreed to sell Bilal for a high price. Without hesitation, Abu Bakr paid it and freed him. Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, was no longer a slave of man, he became a servant of Allah. The Prophet welcomed him with love and dignity. In the new community of believers, Bilal was not treated as a former slave. He was treated as a brother. His status in the sight of Allah and His Messenger was high because of his unwavering faith. Later, when the Muslims migrated to Medina, Bilal continued to serve Islam with sincerity. One day, the Prophet gathered the companions and said that it was time to call the believers to prayer in an organized way. Some suggested a bell, others a horn. But the Prophet preferred a human voice that would rise above the rooftops of Medina, calling the faithful to worship Allah. And so, the first Adhan, the call to prayer, was made. When the companions suggested who should make this call, the Prophet chose Bilal. Imagine that moment, the man who once cried, Ahad! Under the burning sun now stood proudly on the rooftop of the Prophet's mosque, calling out, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Hayya ala as-salah. Hayya ala falah. His voice echoed through Medina, reaching every heart. Tears filled the eyes of those who remembered his past suffering. The voice that once declared Allah's oneness under torture was now calling people to his worship freely, with honor. The Prophet loved Bilal dearly. He once said, "I heard the sound of your footsteps in paradise, Bilal." This was a glad tiding for him, a promise of eternal reward for his patience, courage, and devotion. Bilal's loyalty and love. Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, remained close to the Prophet throughout his life. He fought bravely in battles like Badr and Uhud. After the Prophet passed away, Bilal's heart was heavy with grief. He could no longer bear to call the Adhan in Medina without the beloved Prophet there to hear it. With tears in his eyes, he left for Syria to continue his service in the cause of Allah. Years later, during the time of Caliph Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, Bilal once visited Medina again. The people begged him to call the Adhan one more time. When he began, the city fell silent. As his voice reached the words, "Ashadu anna Muhammad Rasul Allah," the companions burst into tears. They remembered the Prophet, and the streets of Medina were filled with weeping. Shortly after that, Bilal passed away in Damascus. He was buried there, honored and remembered as the first muezzin of Islam, the voice of faith. Lessons from Bilal's life. Bilal's life carries timeless lessons for every believer. He teaches us that true honor comes from faith, not from wealth, race, or social status. He reminds us that Islam broke the chains of discrimination long before the world spoke of equality. His story also shows us the power of patience and steadfastness. No matter how great the trial, Allah never forgets those who remain firm for His sake. In a world that often measures worth by appearance, power, or possessions, Bilal's story reminds us that Allah looks only at the heart. The Prophet said, "Allah does not look at your bodies or your appearances, but He looks at your hearts and your deeds." Bilal's dark skin, his humble background, none of it diminished his greatness. Instead, his heart illuminated the world. When we hear the Adhan today in every corner of the earth, from the deserts of Arabia to the mountains of Europe, it is Bilal's legacy that lives on. Every Allahu Akbar that rings through the air is an echo of his faith, a call to remember that no hardship lasts forever, and that honor belongs to those who hold firmly to the truth. Conclusion. So, dear viewers, whenever you hear the Adhan, pause for a moment and remember Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, the man who endured pain for the sake of truth, who rose from slavery to be honored by Allah, and whose voice continues to call the world to prayer even after centuries. Let his story remind us that Allah can raise anyone from any background to the highest ranks if they are sincere. Hold firm to your faith, speak truth even when it's hard, and trust that every trial you face for Allah's sake brings you closer to Him. May Allah make us steadfast like Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him. Grant us the courage to stand for truth, and bless us with the sweetness of faith. Amin. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to stay updated with more Islamic content. Like, share, and comment to support our work and spread the message.